So, 2 years ago, my buddies and I tried to stay in the park after closing time. Our goal was just to take some pictures, nothing bad, we just wanted to be able to say we did it. Yeah, we just went from bathroom to bathroom, from corner to corner, and we managed to stay there. Until they closed the gates and the maintenance crew started their work. We were really surprised that we didn't get caught. It was odd, given how seriously Disney handles security. Our hearts were pounding like crazy, and we sat there for a while, hidden behind a tombstone not far from the haunted mansion. We noticed it was true. The names of Disney staff members were actually engraved on each of them. So, we finally mustered up our courage and started sneaking around the area, always making sure not to be seen. It was really strange. Sometimes we'd run into a maintenance worker or a guard making their rounds, and we'd just dodge them or hide around a corner. That worked for about 30 minutes. Obviously, we couldn't keep going like that forever. And yes, we got caught, They congratulated us for trying and succeeding. But the story doesn't end there. The first thing we said when they caught us was, "Are you going to lock us up in the dungeon?" And we started to laugh. The guard laughed too. We weren't doing so badly. He also told us that we weren't the first to sneak in after closing, but he wanted to know how we managed to do it. So, we explained it to him and he started laughing, saying it wasn't a bad plan. Then, he said he had to take us to the park's dungeons for further questioning, which we found strange. From the start, we knew getting caught would land us there. That was our plan. We always wanted to see the catacombs more than stay in the park after hours. So, he called other employees to help escort us, and we headed toward Toontown. Then we went down in an elevator straight to hell. The first thing we noticed was how expensive the elevators seemed. I'm not sure I'm being clear, it's hard to explain. The interior was made of stainless steel, with mirrors on every wall, and the floor was covered with a red carpet. Pretty shabby, but it looked expensive. There were only 2 buttons in the cabin, not counting the emergency buttons, up and down. I almost forgot to mention that they never put handcuffs on us, nor tied our hands. They just walked beside us, expecting us to follow them. So, we thought about escaping. Those guys seemed nice. How could we have expected that they would follow? The elevator stopped, and we took this spotless hallway that smelled like bleach, and there were no doors. On either side, there was only a completely empty and plain hallway. We walked for what felt like an eternity, and no one was speaking anymore. There was me, my friends, the guard, and 2 other maintenance workers. Finally, we reached a heavy metal door. Equipped with an access code and a badge reader, one of the employees swiped his card, and the other entered a code on the keypad. I saw him enter 12, 15, and 66. If I still remember them, it's because I later discovered how meaningful those numbers were. And when I think about it, it makes me laugh. Looking back, it's odd that I can laugh about it now. They took my friends and me to another hallway. This one had several doors on each side. Each door had a small plexiglass window, about 25 centimeters square, located at the top right. To be honest, it looked more like the psychiatric ward of a hospital, not really a prison. We reached room 1901, which had a single desk and 3 chairs, perfect for me and my 2 friends. Then they left us alone in there, closing the door behind them. We sat on the chairs like obedient kids and waited for them to come back, but they never did. We waited 2 hours without seeing anyone. Tim walked up to the door, and strangely, it wasn't locked, but he didn't open it. However, he was afraid there might be a guard outside, and that he would think we were trying to escape. We didn't want more trouble. So, we waited some more, like 25 minutes, and we were really starting to get impatient, and we finally decided to go out. The hallway was just as empty as before, not a sign of life, nothing. We started calling out in the hallways like, "Hey, is anyone there?" and nobody answered us. We noticed that surveillance cameras were placed above every door, and we wondered if there was a single living soul in this place. We should have left without hesitation, but again, how could we have known that at that moment it was the best thing to do? All the doors looked the same, and each had its own number. They weren't in order, the numbers were scattered. For example, our cell was room 1901, but the next door had the number 1205. We thought about it a bit and ended up assuming that the numbers were assigned somewhat randomly. We walked along that corridor without really knowing where we were going, what we hoped to find, or if it even mattered. Subtitles. Guay decided that we should just leave this place. According to him, if they really needed us here, they would have come back, and maybe it was just a tactic to scare us. They likely just wanted us to think we were arrested and were waiting outside, laughing. I was really tired of all that. Tim, on his part, had stayed calm the whole time, just nodding his head from time to time. He was more interested in the small windows on the doors. It wasn't a good idea. I tried to tell him, of course, but you don't listen to reason when you're freaking out, and at that moment, we were freaking out big time. The cameras above the doors had a motion detection system and tracked our movements through the empty hallway, a little red light above the lens blinking every second. You couldn't hear a sound except for our breathing. And then it happened. We had reached the end of the hallway, but unfortunately, the door had another code. I tried the one that one of the guards had entered earlier, but it was invalid at that exact moment. The lights went out and we heard the doors. My God, I can still see them today. Those damn doors all opened at the same time. They were all perfectly lined up against the walls. They made a creaking sound and then a loud crash, as if they were slamming hard against the wall behind them. Like I said, after entering the wrong code, the lights went out and the doors opened, except for the ones with the code. We also noticed that when the doors opened, a bit of light escaped through them. We stood there, stunned, for at least a good 5 minutes, not really knowing what to do. We assumed that we had just triggered an alarm and that it was just protocol, a normal procedure in case of an escape. What were we supposed to think anyway? We retraced our steps, moving from the locked door. For one reason or another. We started to panic and suddenly felt like running. We didn't even talk about it. It was like, at that exact moment, we all just knew we had to do it. Just like a baby gazelle that knows when to run from the lion, you could even say we were in a lion's den. We didn't start checking the doors until after passing about 10. A person in costume stood before each opening. We ran past Donald's, Mickey's, Goofy's, Pluto's, and all the other Disney characters. It was crazy, and we screamed as loud as our lungs would allow. I know what they say, never look back when you're running. But I did it, and I saw them leaving their cells and following us. They weren't running, they were just walking casually, and that's what made it even scarier, almost like they knew we had nowhere to go. Today, I wonder if all of that was just in my head, just because of the fear and pure panic we were feeling at that moment. But I swear on everything I hold dear that I heard the It's a Small World music playing through an intercom. I'm really afraid of dolls, and the ride has always scared me. And at that moment, I saw them, the little mechanical dolls standing in the doorway. As we passed by, while the people in costumes kept following us, the dolls didn't chase after us. Thank God. I might have had a heart attack if I'd seen them following the escort. It wouldn't have helped anything. How many times have you been followed by a group of people in costumes, apparently ready to devour you alive? At least, that's what I kept telling myself to convince myself to keep running. Stopping meant getting devoured by a damn Donald Duck. I don't know about you, but that's not how I wanted to die. Tim cried while Guy sweated and breathed heavily. I turned to check if we were still being followed. Of course we were. I'm not really sure anymore how many doors we had passed by at that point, or if there really was a different person in front of each one. But I knew that this hallway had an end, and we were going to get out of there quickly. After a minute or two of running, I looked back again and saw that we couldn't see anything behind us anymore. I could still hear the sound of their footsteps, but I guess we were too far away to see them, and they kept walking normally. The hallway went on for what seemed like an eternity, and Guy had to stop or he was going to collapse from exhaustion. The door next to us was open, the light was on, but there was nothing in the room. I decided that we would hide here, just long enough to catch our breath and be able to keep moving forward. As we closed the door, I saw it was labeled 1966. Once again, it didn't mean anything to us at that moment. Tim repainted the room. Guy was lying on the floor, still breathing heavily, while I was at the window. I couldn't see anything outside. No more music, nothing. It was dark in the hallway. Mimsa, it was hard to be sure, but I guess I could have seen shapes, shadows, anything, so I kept looking. After about 15 minutes, Guy said he was ready to go. Tim was the only one smart enough to use his new smartphone. No signal, obviously. He opened the door slowly, cautiously, but we couldn't hear any more footsteps. Nothing seemed to be following us anymore, but we still took the risk and ran again. It took us 5 more minutes to reach the door. It didn't have a code, and it was open. We entered the previous hallway, and thank God there were no doors, so we ran to the elevator. We pressed the up button and looked at each other again, stunned by what had just happened. Neither of us spoke. We just waited until the door opened. We went back to Toontown and started heading toward the main gate. We stayed low profile, using the same sneaking technique as before. The maintenance workers and security managers were still there, but we couldn't wait any longer. Finally, Tim couldn't hold back anymore and he took off sprinting. I couldn't see what could have made him act like that until I saw that everyone in the park was standing still. We stare at the pale face. The loudspeakers announced that 3 refugees had escaped and needed to be returned to their cells. Tim was immediately caught. People in costumes sprang out, shadows, employees and guards behind them. Everyone was chasing us. After that, I couldn't see clearly anymore, but I could imagine the slap dripping from their faces. He wanted us to go back down there. We had escaped, and they were furious. The gate was very close. The scariest part of all this was that we couldn't hear anything, except for the voice on the intercom. No background noise, no sound from the employees. Even at that moment, while we were apparently running for our lives, the characters, the employees, the guards, none of them said a single word to us. None of them shouted. None of them told us to stop. Nothing but the sound of our footsteps and sometimes Guy, who was gasping for air. Even after we managed to get through the main gate of the park, we kept running all the way to the parking lot. The car was gone, leaving us standing there unsure what to do. So, we kept walking down the road for miles, sometimes stopping to catch our breath. We kept going until we reached a small gas station, where Tim managed to call a cab. He drove us back to the hotel where we were staying. We paid the fare, and everyone went back to their rooms. Finally, the next day, we got a call from the hotel front desk, and we went downstairs. There were police officers waiting for us. They told us that our car had been impounded, and we had to pay the fine. They didn't ask us for anything else, and we didn't bother telling the police what had happened to us the night before. But now, people who have no reason not to believe me still do. So how could a man of the law do that without bothering them? We paid the fine and went home. During the whole trip back, no one talked about what had happened. 2 weeks later, I began searching for the numbers I remembered. Just simple curiosity, I guess. Walt Disney was born on December 5, 1901. The room we were in was 1901, and the one next to it was 1205. He died on December 15, 1966. The employee entered that code to take us to the main hallway. What a coincidence. I wondered if everything we've seen is real. That, I have no idea. Maybe we were just tired, and our imagination was playing tricks on us. It was about 1 in the morning when we escaped, so it was quite possible that it was that. Still, I'll never forget, and one thing's for sure, after that, I never went back to Disney.